Good evening. God bless you. Looks like we're missing some folk tonight. I hope that everybody can get on here. Yeah, I was hoping that some folk come on. Ain't like nobody showed up. Oh my goodness. All right. All right, there he is. Let me see if I could All right, grace and peace, everybody. God bless you. Those of you 1, 2, 3 people who are on, thank God for you. Hopefully that some of you can start sharing, hitting the like button, so we can have this very polarizing and necessary conversation tonight. Tonight looks like it's going to be me and my brother, Apostle Holmes. I guess some of the other brethren will show up at some point tonight, but we're going to continue. I want you all to do me a favor. Please hit like, share button. Please get this to some of your children, some of your friends, some of your church family, so we can have this discussion. I'm gonna bring my brother in tonight. Here he is. God bless you, man. You're on mute.
All right.
There you are. How you doing, brother?
I'm good. I'm tired.
I know. Me too, man. How was your weekend?
It was all right. It was all right. Very productive.
So you were local. I presume you wasn't coming from Afghanistan or.
Nah, not this weekend.
That's good. That's good. Well, I know you need a break before you take off again, because no telling when you're going next. Yeah. But listen, man, I'm glad you in tonight. I'm glad you're here. I imagine maybe the brothers will pop in a little later. But I think we should start with this discussion tonight. I want to let us have this talk around single moms raising male children, sons. And I think it's a conversation that we've been talking around, but I don't know if anyone really talked directly to it. And I think that I think it needs some address. I think we have to do some discussion around it because we do have a lot of moms raising sons, and I think there's some things they need to understand about raising males versus females. Would you agree there's a distinction, or there is a major difference in how you raise either gender?
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely.
So I think the approach, because I think people, this typically what happens, I believe, and maybe we could talk to this a little bit. I think what happens that many times people just think, as long as you put food on the table, and as long as you are just meeting the needs, getting clothes on their back, especially single moms typically only think about that kind of thing. But I think there's a lot more to it. I think there's profound awareness and intentionality. Like, you have to be very specific as to that you are raising a male child. I think that thought has to be a part of your thought process when you're thinking about a male child. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, number one, I think it's a very difficult job. It's difficult with two parents to raise a child. So I can't imagine one parent raising a child. I grew up with both my parents. So, and I know how we were. We weren't bad, but we were very busy. And I was 3 boys and one girl. So it's difficult, and I think you have to start off because the majority of moms that are single and who are raising boys to be young men and to be men, I think they're doing the best that they can. And so you really have to start from there. But that's the start point. It's very difficult raising either or. But boys are just different. They're built different, and they have to be handled different. And I think it's very difficult for a man. I think he's going against the grain, when he's raised by a single mom, and that doesn't discredit women who are doing a wonderful job, with what they have. But I really believe that every boy needs a father. And when you don't have that, the mother has to almost play both roles. Mm-hmm. And sometimes either they don't know how to do that, or they're just doing the best they can, man. And it's unfortunately a disservice in many instances, to the child, because we as children mimic their parents.
Yes.
They mimic, they mimic what they see, they mimic what they hear. And so I can only speak from what I've seen in the church world with a lot of the women who are single moms, and they're doing the best they can. And there's no male figure, that is a constant, if you will, in their lives. And so the boy grows up with a lot of characteristics and mannerisms of a woman. And that's unfortunate. And so that's, that it's there's so many factors that come into play, because once again, and this is not every woman, you know what I mean? This is not every boy. But from what I've seen in the church world, it's not a good, it usually doesn't work out, that boy becomes a solid man, if you will. And there's like, who do you blame? How can you blame the mother? She has no help. You know what I'm saying? If she's doing the best she can. So it's hard, man. And I wouldn't, shout out to all the single moms who are doing the best they can.
Yeah. And this is right in the eve of Father's Day. Right.
Yeah. I mean, and that's, and like, you can't, it's almost like you can't speak to one scenario without speaking to the other, because you have some dudes out here that don't do anything for their kids. They don't want to be involved. And I'm like I have no tolerance for that. You know what I'm saying? I have no space for grace when it comes to a father who won't raise or provide or assist, in the growth of their child, man. That's, to me, that's, you're useless. You're worthless.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, completely.
It's tough. I got some stats for us, man. So the total single parent household as of 2022, and just to kind of give some framework around our thought process, because we know that it's almost a crisis. But
just ginger beer.
Okay, yeah, I like
clarify.
that. I used to drink that. Yeah, I used to drink that. It's pretty good. It's good for your throat, especially after you preach. So as of 2022. There were approximately 10.9 million single parent family groups, children under 18, and 80% of those were headed by single mothers. A number of children in mother only households, around 15.6 million children, and about 22% of all children under 18 live with their mother and no other parent. Now, this is the part that kind of stuck out to me, was that out of the 15.6 million children in a one parent only household, 50% of, if you I guess you divide 50% of that, 51%, there's about 8 million boys are living with single mothers. That's a huge number, man.
Yeah, that's not cool.
It's a huge number, and the reason why I think we need to talk about this is because, like you stated, there's got to be a specific approach. I was raised by my mom was single, but my dad was around, right? But quite naturally, I'm around my mother and I had 3 sisters, right? So I was in a house full of women. So quite naturally, being around all those women, if there's nothing to really balance you out, then you tend to mimic what it is that you see, right? I think Deaconess Barrett says they become copycats, right? So you can't blame a child for talking like their mother, have their hands on their hip like their mother, right? Because that's all they see. And I think the way that, and mothers have to realize that, right? They have to kind of find a way to appreciate the fact that your son is looking at you and doing what he sees you do, which is, every child's a sponge. So you have to take the time to kind of figure out how to speak to that. Now, I know, again, we also have to speak to that because we know that in the church world, that may be one dynamic because we have men. Well, I don't know if we have men. We have men in the church, far few between. But I think we have to think about what are some of the things that we can help women how to approach raising a male child. So I got a bunch of bullet points here. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna I think we could probably walk through it this way, and maybe you could tell me what you think. So the first bullet point that I want, or the first point, is your love and presence are enough. Support is still vital. Boys need emotional safety, not just provision and discipline. Right? So I like that first thing, because sometimes what happens is, I don't know if you've seen this, that mothers sometimes feel like they go overboard, right? If they're not doing, like, if they're not trying to make sure they have what they need, they go hard. Get up, don't cry, stop that. You know, like almost like, boys don't do that. They actually go too hard, right? They tend to I've seen it happen, man. I've seen it happen. I mean, I don't know if you probably experienced this, but I hear a kid will say that, you know, he went home, told his mother that he got into a fight and the boy beat him up, and he ran home to try to get away from the boy, and she'll tell him, go back out there and fight. I think that's a little excessive. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, that's how we grew up. You know, that's where I grew up. You know what I mean? Like all the families out there, you know, and you fighting. But the difference between then and now was, after you fought, y'all were cool, you know, but they made you go out there and fight. Like I think it has to do to some degree where you grew up, the type of environment that you're in. You know, certainly things are not the same today as they were 40 years ago. Exactly. Yeah. So that is, you know, for me, that's the way it was. You know, you boys fought it out, you know, and to some extent girls fought it out too, you know. So, but with mothers telling them that, I don't know if it's overboard. Like, men are protectors. We're supposed to be protectors. You know, we're not supposed to run and say, hey, he hit me, and, you know, and then that's it. We're protectors, and so we were raised to do just that, you know, to protect. You got to protect yourself first, you know. So I don't know if that's overboard. Then I think now it's dangerous. You know, I think in today's environment, in today's culture, I think that's a very dangerous thing, and I wouldn't advise it, you know, to tell them to go out there and fight, because now parents get involved.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, nowadays. So it's just not a good idea to do that. And it's so easy to get caught up in, you know, in saying something like that and pushing your child to fight because you want to teach him to defend himself. Nah, put him in a school so he knows how to fight. You know what I'm saying? But I think the intervention part of it and sending him back out there, I think we live in a very depraved society. And so I'm not sure if that would be the best recourse, you know.
So, hey, good to see you, Bishop.
Hey, Will.
Good to see you guys. What's up?
How you doing, man? Thank you for coming on.
Good, man.
So we're on this topic. I got a couple of points here. I probably should have emailed these to you guys. But here we go. The other thing too, in terms of your love and your presence is enough. Support is still vital. What do you think about getting certain role models, uncles, men involved with building that support system with these young men? What is your recommendation, or what are your thoughts on that? And then also let's talk about how to do that. Where could they find these kinds of groups? I know church is one, but let's talk about it.
I mean, everything is, things are different now, man. I mean, the South is different. The North is different. The projects are different. Things are just different now, even with family, man. Families is different. And so unless you have that type of family dynamic, you have to really do the best you can. First of all, you got to have family that wants to be that will be willing to be involved like that. Everybody's doing their own thing now, man. And things are just different. So I don't, for me, say for instance, my son, before he was prepping to take his ASVAB exam, and he had a lot of just funky math on it and different crazy stuff, right? That's not my lane, but my brother is a physics professor, and so he's all about that life. And so I called him up and I said, hey, I need you to help my son out, help Josh out. And he said, have him call me. So I have that type of support system, and now I'm out of the loop, and he's been calling his uncle. They've been Zooming and doing stuff together. So he's squared away. So that support system is vital. It's just, I think it has to do with what type of family dynamic you have. And even within the community, like where I live, like I'm in the country now, bro. I grew up in the projects where it was different. And you had all of these different resources around, and you knew everybody, because you were in this close environment in the projects with all these buildings for us. But they don't have that up here where I am. So it's you got to navigate it differently, and so that can be a challenge.
Would you? I mean, I imagine probably coaches being on sports, playing sports, that can also act as some level of mentorship. There's this group called the Big Brothers, right? There's I don't know, do they still have that kind of thing going on? Big Brother.
Yeah, I think so. And coaches are like those like at my son's school, like the coaches are phenomenal. Like especially with football, man, that's like a big family. You know what I mean? And so it really enforces and reinforces discipline, help if you need it. You know what I mean? Camaraderie, all those different things, and they build them up, as young men. But if we could just shift it back to the single moms in dealing with this. A lot of single moms have their sons in those types of programs, and sports, that's huge. It really helps out a lot, to have them engage in those type of activities at a very young age, And so for those single moms that are doing that stuff, kudos, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Because that's major. Back in the day, we didn't just have sports, but in school we had workshop with wood shop and ceramic and auto shop. You know what I'm saying? We had all those different things, which kind of help build the masculinity, for the young men. So you had those different types of support systems within the community. Now, again, it depends on the family dynamic. It depends on your community dynamic.
Okay. Bishop?
I'm not sure where you all are in the conversation.
Okay, well let's
excuse my tardiness.
I don't know. We'll think about that. But anyway, we're just talking about. Actually, we're on the points of just trying to giving advice as to what ways single moms can help, ways single moms can raise their sons. And we were just talking about emotional support and getting them around the right people, not having to do it alone. Like, what environment should parents kind of gear their sons into to get the necessary help? Because a woman woman cannot raise. I mean, she could raise a son, but she can't be a dad, right? And there are things that a male needs very different from what a woman needs as terms of their gender, right? Who they are in the world. So
is this a case? Is this a case where a relationship with the father is not viable?
Yeah, we're talking about the dad is not around. She's alone on this. Yeah, she's alone on this. And we're just trying to give pointers as to, in terms of, because again, that household that we were saying earlier in the conversation, that household is very feminine, right? Especially if it's just a mom. Now, if he has brothers, that may be a little easier, right? But even then, both brothers could be in that same environment, right? Whereas it becomes very feminine, and he's only learning he's only gravitating to what he sees in the house. If there's nothing to balance that out, and that's kind of what we're saying. How can we advise? What can we advise moms to get that type of balance outside of the house? I think you guys offered some good points. Certainly, there are mentorship programs. If they are not a big sports son, you could also enroll them in the boys clubs if the community has a boys club, or any kind of mentorship program, so they can have something in front of them to kind of see, to give them some guidance into different levels of their life. I know, as Apostle was saying, when we were growing up, for me, I had my dad, but I also had god brothers that nurtured me up to a certain point. Then you had big brothers in the community that nurtured you up. It's almost like you were handed off to different people at different levels. And so I certainly think mentorship would be something that they should look into. Again, to kind of give him a road mark, speak to somebody that can give him some guidance and some directions as to things to aspire for. But I wouldn't let them wing it. I mean, even churches have programs like that, some, but I wouldn't let them wing it, because that could be very, very detrimental, depending on whose hands they falling in. Yeah, especially
these days, there's so much deception out there. You kind of want to look into programs that are established, that have been vetted, and there are testimonials connected to those programs working. Don't just send them because they said it's a mentorship program. Do your research on it, and are there any people that came through that particular program that could speak to its credibility? All that is important nowadays, you know.
All right. Next thing I want to throw at you guys. Let's talk about this a little bit. Teach him emotional literacy. And these are the 2 bullet points I have. Help him name his feelings. Recognize that anger often makes pain or fear. Teach him empathy and how to express himself healthily. That's kind of a weird.
Can you repeat that?
Which one?
All of it.
All right. So I'm gonna do this.
You said teach him emotional literacy.
Yeah. So hold on. I'm gonna put it up. So the first one is teach him. Hold on a second. Teach him emotional literacy, and these are the 2 bullet points. Help him name his feelings and recognize that anger often masks pain or fear. And the other bullet point was teach him empathy and how to express himself healthily. I don't know why I can't say that word tonight.
And how about in a healthy way?
How about in a healthy way? You see it right there. I don't know why I can't say this word.
Who put who
Healthily.
who did
Healthily.
that? Why would somebody even use that word?
I don't know. That's how.
Right,
That's
just in a healthy manner.
yeah. So, but check it out, right? So let's talk about this because I think we have to. There has to be some. I mean, and the reason why I think this point was important because I grew up all my life not knowing how to. I didn't even know that I could express my feelings. I didn't even know how to identify my feelings, right?
Mhm.
So, and the first time I was ever asked about my feelings, I didn't know how to answer it, right? So,
Mhm.
and I think because I don't know, because men have a hard time with it in this area specifically.
Right.
We're not very emotional by nature,
Mhm.
and I want us to talk a little bit about this. Teach him emotional literacy. What are your thoughts?
Hope.
Come on, Pope.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like the term
Okay.
that is used, although I understand it. We need to teach men how to acknowledge their emotions, how to be in self and stay in, how to be self-controlled, how to express themselves as a man, and
But what does that look like?
well, that I think that looks like one saying what you mean and meaning what you say, saying exactly how you feel, so things don't become bottled up and you develop an anger issue, where everything is suppressed and now you're under a pressure cooker and there's no vent. So
Mhm.
I think that's one avenue of approach. And to your point, Kali, I think that there has to be balance because you need whatever that term was that you used. There has to be a balance because you don't want men to be all like emotional all the time. You know what I'm saying? That's not how we're built. That is not how we're supposed to be. But to express what we're feeling, that's different, and being able to express that because we are beings who naturally suppress our emotions and keep things on the inside. And since we're talking about that, we can talk about what the comparison is of men having heart attacks and stroke as compared to women, and some of the whys behind that. So I think there's a lot that goes into it, but I think we have to teach men, our boys, how to. Again, I don't like that word emotional when it comes to men, but how to express what's going on the inside, and especially when they're angry, and teach them how to release that and be done with it. You know what I'm saying? And not hold on to stuff.
But they can't always be done with it. I think they got to learn how to be disciplined.
Well, that's what I said, self-control as well.
And learn how to handle things in a healthy manner because there are things that are going to happen. There are things that are going to happen emotionally that you can't always erase. And so you have to learn how to redefine and hit reset after you deal with certain emotional crises and things like that. And it comes in stages, up until you get to the teenage years, then there's going to be another level of emotional discipline and maturity because now you're going to have peer pressure incorporated into the equation. In the first impressionable years, you may be the primary guide for that. But once they start dealing with teenagers and peer pressure and things outside the house, you got to teach them how to function with a certain level of discipline and a certain level of maturity. especially when they're going to enter classrooms and they can't act out and they can't have tantrums. When they don't like what a teacher says, respect and authority. There's levels to it. It's not fluid.
Yeah, and the other thing too is that being a female, and how if they're learning their behavior, the emotional literacy from a female, the mom, then they're going to act like her, right? So that may be that may come out in yelling and screaming and crying, right? Just crying for just because that's the first thing they saw. That's what happens when we get mad, we cry, and then we just fall apart. Now I don't have a problem with. I think you have to teach emotion. I think we have to be willing to understand. I do feel some kind of way, but how do I respond to that feeling, right? How do I respond to thing that happened, right? And if I'm learning how to do that from this person, that's how we learn, right? And that's not the way that maybe mom could do that and it'd be accepted, but you can't respond like that. And so one of the things I realized, my son, when my wife and I got married, he was young, about 8-9 years old, and their relationship was bonding, right? And so he would respond a certain way to things. He would start crying, and or he'll come to me like in a whining mode, like crying, asking for something. I said, well, I don't respond to that. We don't do that here. I said, you got something you want to ask me, you got something you need to say, then say that, and you can't fall out every time you don't get your way. You got to find a way. You got to find a way to deal with
communicate. Yeah, right? You got to communicate.
So he's learning this, and so now it's great, right? Because after checking that and helping him, you have to understand where he's coming from too, right? The mindset. But now he does it. He's a colleague. Can we have so and so, or so now we have that relationship. But it comes to where you have to first recognize that he's going to respond to what he's seen. And I think a lot of moms may not realize that, because they just, again, single moms are doing what? Trying to pay the bills, trying to keep things on, trying to keep food on the table, trying to keep clothes on their back, right? They're dealing with the necessity of things, but the other things kind of slip through the cracks. And I think that's where we have to be mindful of how we're teaching the management of emotion, right? And then how and what that looks like, what you're doing in front of them. Like if you trigger and yell and scream and holler, that's what he's going to do.
That's
right?
what they're going to do. Yeah.
Right. And if you got to teach him, I think one of the points that empathy. How to understand empathy, because I know there's a guy, Pastor Holmes, Apostle. We talked about this gentleman who's doing a lot of work with young men. He does karate or jiu-jitsu, or who's that guy we were talking about a while back? Out in New York. I think he's in New York. He has a book out. He does a lot with men, and he helps men deal with their emotions, young men, like when they're fighting. He has a book.
I think you're talking about that brother. I think he's in Brooklyn or something.
Yeah.
And he has fathers there sometimes.
Yeah, he does a whole thing with them, and he talks about the management of emotions, like how, because a lot of our young men are angry, right? A lot of our young men are frustrated, and they don't know how to deal with that. No one's ever taught them how to deal with that, and I think that single moms would probably fare well for them to think about how that works in a male child. I thought that was
teach him how to compartmentalize. Sometimes, we can't, as the scripture tells us, you just can't utter all your thoughts. A fool utters all his thoughts.
Right.
But when you're gonna speak, you gotta learn how to speak clearly and express yourself appropriately, as you were just stating about your son. You can't come to me crying, asking for something, because I can't interpret tears. So slow down, take a breath, and explain to me what you want calmly so I can understand it. Or even if you're upset about something, Explain to me why you're upset, so I can understand it. Because I just can't respond to unbridled emotions. Like, and I'm not telling you not to have emotions. I'm telling you to have a little bit of discipline in how you express them, because at certain times, in certain places, in certain environments,
Mhm.
it's just not appropriate. You know, we were taught in church we had to act a certain way. We had to go to the bathroom at a certain time. If we wanted a parent, we had to learn how to get to them, and just different things that we learn. And I'm not saying everything we learned was proper, but as you got older, because you had certain things modeled in front of you, at least you had a direction.
Mhm.
A lot of them don't have any models in front of self-control, any models of discipline, any models of aspiring to be something, any idea what's going to happen after you leave the care of your mama. And you got to learn how to take care of yourself. Because I know a lot of young men raised like that. They go straight from mama house to a woman house, and they never live because they can't live without a woman.
Mm.
They can't live without a woman making
That's
decisions and telling them what to do and how to act. And when because men have been etched out the equation, when men try to explain to them these things, we become an enemy, because we're trying to help them get a grasp on manhood in a certain light that was kind of stunted by their mothers. And so now they don't want to hear it from us. I call them, I used to call them in my church spiritual mama's boys, because when they had issues, they would always run to the women to coddle them, because they didn't want to hear the truth that men had to offer. So they don't know how to take strong support and critique from men.
Right.
I see that happening. I see that happening a lot with men in their adulthood. You start talking to a man about handling his responsibilities and not to be depending on a woman, and it's almost like they're ready to fight. Like and you're trying to really build them up. And I think this is a good point too. I want to raise this. I put on the screen here. Model healthy boundaries and respect. Let him see you enforce boundaries and maintain dignity in relationships. And I think that's important, because a lot of our single moms, not I'm saying a lot, but what'll happen is that they'll be bringing in men in and out of their homes.
Right.
We need to talk about that a little bit, because when you're raising a son, and then now that son sees his mom with multiple boyfriends in and out of their lives, I think we need to talk about that. I think that's very important.
Everybody's a potential stepdaddy, so he's going through all these emotional cycles now.
Yeah, and they come and they leave him, right?
I'm sorry. I heard Roy Brown. I don't know if y'all remember Roy Brown.
I know Roy Brown. I remember Roy Brown. Yeah.
Roy Brown said one time, he said his mother used to, and I'm paraphrasing, his mother used to bring home a different man every other month and say, "This is your stepdaddy."
See?
But see that, but listen, think about the relationship damage,
of course,
that causes to a young man, and the anger and the what happens to his dignity and his because he may think it's him, because that's how most children think, right? If someone's in their life for a while, they gravitate to him, and all of a sudden he's not there anymore, right? Then some other guy shows up, right? And then he gravitates, because a male child is going to gravitate to a male mentor or example, and that relationship can become very, very bonding when they're really young. And if you don't understand that you should not be bringing these 5 or 6 different men in and out of his life, you can damage him emotionally.
Yeah, because you're teaching him to see you as an object. Because all they see is men cycling through. And so that gets into their psyche. And that's how they see themselves when it comes to women. I just passed through. I ain't looking to build no relationship, because in the back of your mind, next week is going to be somebody else. So I'm cycling through. And so you start to cycle through women. You know, the Bible says the glory of children is their fathers. And so I think it's important for us at some point to realize there has to be some male presence if you're raising a male child, again, on some level. Because if that principle is established, we can't erase it.
Yeah, the challenge with that is that, and I can only speak in terms of what we're seeing in the church overall. And one, in the church, there's a deficit as it relates to men. And the men, and to be blunt, a good portion of the men who are there in the church are not all men. You know, they're very effeminate. And so
he want to take us down that rabbit hole, Sally.
I mean, we're talking about role models, and
I agree.
You know, but there's a lack, certainly in the church. There's a huge lack in the church. So again, you have these women out here who are doing the best they can, and here's the challenge: if a woman has been doing it by herself, a mom has been doing it by herself for any period of time, right, where the father is not involved, is of no help, or she has bitterness and keeps the child from her father.
That's
right?
another thing too.
She's not going to allow many times another man to be a man to that child. I'm not speaking for all women, but I'm telling you what I've seen. Many will be very protective of that child, and again, that male child will imitate what he sees.
Yeah,
and
that's why I was asking in the beginning: is a relationship with the father viable?
Right.
And he said it's not, because you're right. If there's not a relationship, if the mother and father don't have some type of relationship, depending on where she is emotionally, that's going to be passed down to her male child.
Yeah.
So that's why I asked that question initially, because if at all viable, you want to make the father a part of his life on the level that he can be. But if he can't be, if he's not reliable, then you have to seek some type of mentorship. And listen, some mentorship can take place from a distance. You can turn them on to people that they can watch and listen to, that can help them. You know what I'm saying? Because there's so many people teaching on fatherhood and manhood. Buy them the tapes on some of the series that these pastors and counselors do, that they can sit and listen to when they're of age to be able to absorb it properly.
I think we just need to step up, and I think that we need single moms' help in stepping up. Again, one of the challenges is, like, people can't be trusted these days. You know what I'm saying? You in the church, and you have these men mentoring these boys and all this crazy nonsense.
They're grooming them. They grooming them,
man. Like, that happens. So it's like you can't blame them for that. You know what I mean? So we are in an uphill battle with this, and it sucks because, and I can only speak for the church world, there's a good portion of the men in our church that's women. And so it's like, what role model? You know, the women the single moms have to protect their sons from what they've seen. And so it's, like they need help, but they need the right men, to do that. And
it's why credibility is important. You gotta establish, you gotta seek somebody that has some credibility, whether it be in the community or the circle they function in, then they're not going to do more harm than good. That's where the mother has to do her due diligence in making sure she's introducing and connecting her son to people that are credible. You know, because if you turn her over to the wrong hands, you know what I'm saying? Like you have your son, you did martial arts and the whole military path and things like that. So, you know.
Yeah, I think the responsibility of trying to
I'm sorry. Like, your wife just put that up there, man. Let me tell you what happened to me.
Here go the folks.
On this panel, and what, man? I was on this panel in the church, and you know, and this is part of the problem, and it's a very good point, you know, that your wife made. But I was part of this panel, and they asked the question, stupid question: can a bishop be gay? Right? And everybody is dead. There were some dudes on here that everybody knows. They're known worldwide, right? Yeah. And little old me was on a panel and they're dancing around it. And I'm like, no, like you can be that, but you ain't no bishop. You know, you
Lord, why y'all always got to call out the bishop now? It's more it's more apostles than bishops now, because everybody apostle.
Look here, I'm talking about the question they asked. So I said, well, we can go to Deuteronomy, we can go to Leviticus, we can go to Romans, you know what I'm saying? We can go to Ephesians. Like, what part of that don't you understand? You know what they did? They kicked me off the panel. So when we talk about addressing this stuff in the church, a lot of these jokers don't want to hear it. And
wait. They kicked you. What do you mean they kicked you off?
They kicked him off the panel.
They ushered you out.
They told him they
kicked me off.
They grabbed him by the back of his shirt and threw him out.
I kid you not. So you try and address that today, man. You going in the lion's den, and you better be ready for them to come for you. So and that's true. We just have to do.
So what do we gotta address male femininity in the church?
Man, honestly, personally, that's a lost fight, man. You just got to keep teaching the truth, because they're gonna affirm what they affirm and believe what they believe. But my problem is that the single moms. See, here's the deal. From what I've seen. And again, there's no blame here. I want to repeat this. There is no blame here. But a lot of the moms don't see that they're raising their sons to have feminine characteristics, because they're doing what they do. They just, you know what I mean? So a lot of them don't see it. And so how are you going to address something that you don't see in the first place? We can address it.
But how when you say they're raising them to have feminine characteristics,
it's not intentional.
How? Like, what?
It's not intentional.
I'm only asking because I was raised with 3 sisters and a mother, and I don't feel like I was.
Many.
Go ahead.
Once again, many, not all. You know what I mean? We were raised in number one, we were raised in a different era. Things are so much different now than back then. And when I say they don't see it, it's not a slight. It's not a jab. It's just that they're doing the best they can to raise this kid who happens to be imitating what he sees. And they're so, they're grinding and trying to get it done and working with 2 hands, trying to do 12 things. A lot of them don't see it. And so, and that's, again, it's not a jab. It's what it is from what I've seen.
Now you saying that
I'm talking about what I've seen, brothers. They bring their sons to the church. Their hair is styled like little girls.
And I ain't seen that.
I've seen it.
Oh, because I
And
thought you were talking about in terms of them teaching us how to cook, iron, take care of ourselves. You know what I'm saying?
It's a different era. We just gotta, I think we have to step up and we have to gain trust with the single moms to do things like we gotta make time, for this next generation. We really do. Some kind of way. We gotta make time for them and to do things, to fishing. You don't have to know how to fish. Like we would play football, tag football in the parking lot. Like just things that young boys do with just men.
That's what I mean? What we did. That's what we did.
But there has to be a level of trust, and we gotta, we have to gain that trust and build that trust and keep that trust.
Right.
And that's the other thing. Like there are so many homes. You laid out the statistics where the father is not in the home, and we already know just because the father's not in the home doesn't mean that he's not a father or can't be or shouldn't be.
Or he could be in the home and not be a good influence.
Yeah, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about if he's not in the home, our single moms need help. And we got to address this on two fronts, because once again, if a woman has been doing it on her own for any period of time, she is going to be protective, and rightfully so. She is going to have this, I've been doing this by myself, and even though she doesn't want to, you know what I mean? But she's been doing it for so long, she's going to have that protective nature, and a good woman is not going to allow, every dude in her life to be a mentor to her child. No, she's going to protect that child. And so where do we come in at? We have to start doing things. We have to start doing things in the church, outside of the church, with these kids that don't have fathers in their home.
Well, I'm hearing sometimes maybe the mother may need educating too.
That was going to be my next
point. Because if she has trauma that she is now passing down to this child, even in being protective, even in trying to be a provider, that looked like a Guinness, man. But even
he mentioned earlier because he knew that you would come on it.
Ginger beer.
Oh, what is it?
Ginger beer. Ginger.
Oh, okay. That's what they call it now.
Anyway,
she may need. I'm just saying. Then there may need to be a class. May need to be help not just for the child, but single mothers may need some guidance and help and educating on how to point their child in the right direction.
So the other guidance is to get some therapy to deal with past traumas, hurts, even the trauma of being abandoned by the father with this child, right? Because then you have that dynamic, and so it's important to raise that, because again, say, how do I deal with this male child? Well, first, if you have a disdain toward men or even the father of this young man, that's something you're going to have to grapple with and deal with.
Facts.
Because that can also go into the development of the child.
Right.
I see mother. Oh, your wife's on, man. He can't talk when she's on.
We know
traumatized.
He can't talk when she's on.
Whatever.
We know traumatized, boy.
Whatever.
When he see the white thing show up underneath, boy.
So I think that's a good point. Let's push through here a little bit. I wanted to read. Did y'all read her point?
Nah, y'all was too busy talking.
We need a professional reader. We need a professional reader, because I can't see that. Well, let me switch glasses. Let me see.
Oh,
let me put on my readers. A lot of moms are buying into the notion of toxic masculinity. True. and are encouraging their boys to become more feminine. Yeah. Allowing boys to paint their fingernails, play with dolls, etc.
Wow. Wow.
Wow. Yeah. Okay, that's a different.
Yeah, she's coming pretty hard and heavy. And then, okay, that's her point. So I want to put this next thing.
Classes for young mothers.
So look at this point. I want to raise. I know that Apostle said he has to take off in a few, but the women are coming in here pretty strong, man. Let me get their points.
Awesome. Awesome.
Let me the episode of fathers is a real issue here, and I believe when we begin to reconcile relationships between children and fathers, that's the real work. Good. That's a good point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's true. It's not intentional. My son. Okay, she was.
Guitar, baseball bat, and my mom said,
I know that's right. That's right, Florida.
Yeah.
With a helmet, a baseball bat. I hear you.
All right, so this Pastor Jack is here, man. I don't know if he can talk right now, but this point here, speak to his identity and early and often call out the man in him. I think that's important. I think women can do that in a way that probably no other can, in some respect. Tell him his, give him responsibilities, give him chores, develop his sense of purpose, let him know how he's supposed to respond as a young man. I think that's a good point to raise, because if you don't have that male figure in the house, someone has to speak to that, right? Someone has to address his purpose and identify what his purpose is in that regard. What are you guys' thoughts on that? I know they're going at it, man. This is good. Fellas, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, this time we was reading the comments, so we didn't hear what you said.
Right, we didn't hear you because I was reading the comments coming in.
Okay.
She said, I think she said her son had on her mama's scarf, and she snatched it off. Now I got a picture with my mama high heels on.
Throw that away, sir. Throw that away. And don't ever mention that again to either.
Listen, ain't no shame in my game. Sometimes kid. I was curious. I wanted to see how she walked in those, because I thought it was crazy.
It's crazy you mentioned it. Let's go.
I thought it was crazy.
All right. She says to burn it, Bishop.
No, I ain't burning it. I ain't burning it because trust me, I'm 100%, 1,000% man.
Okay.
I mean, but
ain't no shame in my game.
I hear you, man. Men, boys need, like if we say men are kings, right? Like I always pull something out of two stories. One is with Jezebel and her husband, and the other is with Bathsheba and Solomon. And to paraphrase it, Jezebel said to her husband, she said, "Aren't you the king? Like, you the king. Let's just leave it right there." Boys need to be reminded who they are. And they should be. They should be told, "You're a king." I think if you put it up there, you're a protector. You know what I mean? You are head of the house. Like, you are the man. Like, you are that one. Bathsheba, when she approached her son, even though her other son was trying to get something out of his brother, but she approached her son as king. You know what I mean? Not as her son. And I think there's a level of affirmation that a man should have, and it should be a constant in their lives, because men, like we have, there's a lot of weight that's not talked about. There's a lot of burden that boys, and you mentioned Bishop, like when they go into teen years, and you got to deal with the peer pressure. And I know it's out there for girls too, but you got to deal with the peer pressure, and you got to deal with the bullying, you got to deal with the fights, you got to deal with all this stuff. So you're in a defensive mode and a protective mode out the gate as a boy, right? And so that affirmation aspect of it is so powerful. And I think it's not done enough. And I think it even spills over into relationship. You know, it is so powerful that you be reminded of who you are, what you are, whose you are, etc., etc. I think because look here,
but you got to look at it in today's time.
A man with the right type of affirmation, man, he'll run through a wall for you.
That's right.
He'll believe that he can stop a train. You know what I'm
saying? But as you said earlier, we had a village.
Right.
They don't have a village now. So in today's context, how can we help them? Because like I said, after church, my mother would let me get in the car with my godbrothers. I had older godbrothers. They would take me out. They would tell me if anybody, listen, I got in a fight one time at camp, came home crying. It wasn't my mother or my father who even corrected me. My godbrother told me, if you don't go get him, I'm going to get you. So there was levels. We had a village. They don't have that now. They got social media. And they see what's popping on social media, and that is their influence. And femininity and all these likes and things that they see on social media, sometimes that's more of an influence and more real to them than what's directly in front of them. You could be the picture of manliness in front of them, but they're going home to spend 5-6 hours looking at Snapchat and Instagram and Facebook or whatever. That's their main influence. So how do we reach them in those venues? Because that's where they are, and that's what they're being influenced by. We don't have the same amount of time with them, even in church, like we used to have, because we had to be in the building. YPWW, Sunday school, choir rehearsals. That village was built in the building. Now they don't have that because they play sports on Sunday. If they're in that realm, so how do we make an impact with minimum access to them?
That's a really good point and a really good question, because a lot of these young boys and young men, they are doing sports, and it's on Sundays, and you know, and that's just, you know, I remember, like, I played baseball and they had a game on Sunday, and I'll never forget, man, my father told me it's the last game you play on Sunday.
Yeah,
he meant what he said, and I never played on a Sunday again.
I couldn't play on a Sunday. I had to wait until I was playing. I mean, I couldn't play football until I was my freshman year in junior high, because that's when you can play on Fridays. And then when I got in high school, you play on Saturdays. But midget league, little league was all on Sunday. But my
dad eventually let me play because my coach convinced him.
That's a whole other topic, man.
Yeah. So let's do this last one, because we have a lot, but I want to do this last one because this, I think, is a very important point. Avoid making him the man of the house too early. Let him be a child, not your parent, not your partner or your emotional partner. Avoid burdening him with adult roles. And I think that is
all great points.
Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of our single moms have to remember not to do, because what happens is then he becomes your man.
There you go.
And then that's another that could be trauma, you know, to a young boy to carry that kind of responsibility. He can't even be a man, you know. Y'all remember that movie? How many of you seen the movie The Wire?
No, I didn't watch that.
Yeah. You mean that series?
Yeah, the series of Wire.
Yeah.
It was a whole, and there was a scene when the boy, his father was this gangster in the street, and the mom, and he was a big drug dealer. He was, was really like one of them dudes, but the boy didn't have that, and so when the dad went to jail, she told him, you got to step up.
Yeah,
you got to go out and get this money. And he's trying to be this thug, and he ain't got it in him. He ain't got none of that in him. He had a long ponytail, the whole bit.
Right.
And he tried to do it. He tried to do it, but he just didn't have the heart. And then it took a ex-cop. You remember this, Pastor Apostle? He took an ex-cop to actually almost adopt him, to get him out of that lifestyle so that he can be raised with the affirmation and go on to be who he's supposed to be. And I think sometimes that's a reality in a lot of our communities. And that's what's going on in some of these households, is that the young man can't even be a young man, right? Because he's got to be a man. He can't be a kid. He can't be a child, because you're already trying to throw this responsibility on him that he's not able to bear.
Yeah, that's another. I think that's another topic as well, man. Because it just is, man. When you put that type of burden on the child, and he or she, for that matter, has to grow up faster than they should. And they lose their childhood because they're trying to be the man of the house and all that kind of stuff, man. That's just not. I don't think it's healthy. Sometimes, life is sometimes not fair. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, there are kids who do have to step up. I remember my dad. A lot of kids in the South back in the day, they had to quit school to work.
Yeah.
They had to. Like, that was not an option. The parents would tell them, well, you ain't going to school. We gotta eat. We gotta. And so that just was not an option. And I think, fortunately, today is different. And as tough as things are, there are a lot more resources that are available. And I just don't think that we should put any type of adult responsibilities or burdens on children, because it really robs them.
Right.
It robs them of a lot.
Yeah. I want to put this affirmation up here. Go ahead, Bishop. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, so then it sounds like we're at least all agreeing at some point the mothers need help with how to raise these man-children. They need some education, or they're going to raise them based on the education that they've experienced and how they've developed it based on their relationship with men. If they had a good relationship with their father, it could be beneficial. But if they didn't, then they're going to pass that trauma on to their relationship, almost trying to build a bond with their child, their male child, because they didn't have a relationship with their child. I think is real vital what you're saying, because you'll try to make your child do something and be something that your father didn't do and be in your life. And you'll handcuff them so much to you, they don't even know how to handle as they get older. When they get a woman, mama still comes first, and it shouldn't be that way.
Yeah, that's a good point, Bishop, and that's a good point, Sister Yolanda. And that just speaks to that help aspect. I mean, there should be, it's tough. Like, it's tough on pastors nowadays, trying to get family to be family, but have a church family when it comes to the children, because I can't tell you, I don't think there's one kid in my church who doesn't have some type of activity going on a Sunday, and the parents are taking them to their activities, and so it's tough. It's tough. And so they're getting mentorship, but they're not getting fathership. What I mean?
Yeah.
And so, and I think that's vital. Like, one is they both need it.
And
but
sometimes
I think
you
there has to
can
be a healthy balance.
And putting your kids in sports, let's face it, if they have feminine characteristics, putting them on the sports team is not going to take that out of them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and a lot of them do that to try to, and then the next thing you know, if they're halfway decent on one level, you automatically start making them think pro ball is the next step. And so it's important to point them in the direction of having realistic goals.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they need that role model, that mentor, somebody that can kind of and that what Apostle Holmes was just saying. That puts a lot of pressure on us as pastors, especially if we don't have teams to help us in that role. I've never seen a day like now where, and maybe it existed before too, I can't say that, where you have to kind of be an end all be all. You know what I'm saying? And everybody, because I don't know, maybe people have been taught to think that pastors have all the answers. Well, we need teams and help developing and building certain things that the ministry needs as well. But I think this is very vital because I've dealt with a lot of mama's boys in the church, and when male comes into place, they shrink back. They can't take it. They're offended by a male presence.
Yeah,
trying to give them direction in their life or correction in their life.
You know, I had a. Go ahead, Pastor.
No, go ahead.
I had a pastor friend of mine who brought that as part of a concern that she had as relates to some of the men in her church, and that they got mama issues. You know, they got these challenges, and she's like, I you know, that's why they gravitate to her. You know, that's why. And then when you confront these men, you see it. Like once you challenge them, you start seeing that they prefer. It's like, you know, they prefer to go to the softer one, the one that's not going to challenge them and put responsibility on them and put pressure on them. Mm-hmm. You know, like I said, you know, we talked about this a few weeks ago. Like, you know, I tell some that's weak. You know, might be strong words, but that's the push. You know, like, listen, man, you know, you're taking the weak man's role.
I think somebody said, I think I was watching the show. I think I was watching All American when the coach died, and she basically said, like, I get my attitude from my mother, but I got my dreams from my father, because my dad told me I could be anything. My dad told me that I could change the world. My dad taught me these things, but my mother, I got my mother's energy and attitude. You know, so there's gonna be a combination. Because listen, dad is going to be a part of their life, whether he's in it or not. He's going to be there genetically. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. He's going to have some genetic disposition connected to his father, and the mother needs to be aware of that too. When you say to a child, "You act just like your father," you're probably right. You're probably right, because he's going to play a part if he ain't playing a part.
Absolutely. All right, so this is what I want us to. We're going to wrap this up. I'm trying to keep our times down to at least an hour and a half. We can go all night. We're preachers. We talk a lot.
But Mother Holmes just said something.
Man, whatever.
Oh, I think I just wrote what I put it up there already. We read it.
I don't know about. I mean, I don't know about that. I think there's some validity to that, but a lot of the parents don't bring their kids out.
Well, nobody wants to teach that stuff. Nope. Everybody, at least in my church, I can honestly say most people wanted to be in the sanctuary, having church. Quite often, you don't get people to have the buy-in to understand the importance of having an interest in pouring into the youth. And they become lost. They become secondary in the church environment because most people want to be in the sanctuary, having church, and developing our youth. They don't see that as critical minutes. There were times I wish I could have left the sanctuary service and went and spent time with the youth. But as the pastor, you can't do that. And if you don't have a team to be able to do that, then some things fall by the wayside.
Well,
I never thought they were just a byproduct, but you got to get people that have that drive to really, really pour into them and not quit on them.
Yeah, that's a good point. So we have to do better. I think that's the bottom line. You know, we have to do better. We have to do better.
Yeah, I want to put that here.
And just to your point, Bishop, like, you know, we have made everything church, and building a boy into a young man, into a strong man. You know, we have to take that. That's doing stuff outside the walls. It really is. And so we have to do better. And to my wife's point, you know, we do have to become more involved, or like you said, have a team, you know, of real men. And to take it a step further, you know, we have 4 churches here.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? There's nothing to say that we can't come together and collaborate.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's a good point.
You know
exactly.
what I mean?
It has to be a key because youth again. I'm not saying I didn't have youth leaders, but to have somebody that really, really had a conviction for pouring into the youth and not drop the ball because of what's going on in their own life. You know what I'm saying? Usually when they get a goal or something different, the youth don't matter. I got to go do this, or this becomes more important. So we don't often have team members that have the same buy-in on that leadership level as we have in pastoring the church. We passionate about showing up to preach. We passionate about Bible study. We passionate about prayer. Anything that we have to do concerning ministry. Maybe y'all have had it. How many of you have had people as passionate about the other areas of ministry in your church than you have for the main church?
Right. That's a whole different topic.
But it is. But our single mothers are suffering because of that.
Yeah. And not just the mothers, but the sons.
Daughters as well. I mean, not to get it, we're talking about male children, but it's a trickle down effect that hasn't existed.
That's true.
We had that in when I was growing up. One of the deacons would take us to play football on Saturdays. We saw the men cleaning the church. We saw the men around the church working. We saw the men doing certain things. The men are just gravitating to their wives, and whatever needs to be done around the church often is left. And we walking around doing it ourselves, unless you have 1 or 2 men. So now the value of the church is diminished. And once it becomes diminished, you don't have access to those children to help them develop and evolve in the stages of life that they're going through. Because you only catch them in fleeting moments. And most of the time on Sunday mornings, they sit in the back of the church, arms folded on Facebook. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's the other thing too. All right, gentlemen, listen, I'm going to let me jump in here. I'm gonna throw a comment I've been trying to put out here. I want the women to read this. This is just an affirmation as to just trying to help. It says here, I am enough. My love is powerful. I am not raising just a boy. I'm shaping a man of character, strength, compassion. It says, I don't have to have all of the answers. I just have to stay present and stay loving and keep showing up. So mothers, at the end of the day, as you're grappling with all the things that you grapple with, just keep doing those things. And as you know, you continue to pray for your children, your sons. God will send help, right? God will send the right people to come and support that. I want to put this out. This quote from Frederick Douglass said, "It's easier to build a strong children than it is to repair a broken man." To repair broken men. And so think about that when you're dealing with these young men. Pastor Dancy has a quote, has a point here. Okay.
All right, Yolanda, slow down, girl.
Yes, you know, Pastor, right?
We can't undo what he has established. It's fact.
Pastor Dancy.
Yeah. All right. Listen, God bless you. Love you all. Thank you for coming on. Pastors, brothers, any last words before we go? Pastor Jack is in. He put a comment up here. He had a little private comment. I can't find it now. Last words.
Is it the one that's here? Young boys, girls pick up their behaviors that become familiar. Is it that one? That's on the side here.
What's that?
His comment.
What's it say?
It says young boys and girls pick up behaviors that become familiar to them.
Yes.
So it's important how single moms conduct themselves around their sons.
Yeah, that's his.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I just saw it. Okay.
Pastor
I just figured out I can see the comments on the right here.
Oh, yes,
right,
Lord.
awesome.
Okay, well, yes. Send help.
Send help for us, man. They sending up SOS signals, man. We got to collaborate and do something.
Yeah, we have to do better.
Let me ask you a question.
Step up. Yeah.
Ladies, any women want to come on tonight? Just want to say something, ask a question to these gentlemen while they're giving their last points. We'll let you do that. Pastor Holmes, last words.
You talking to me?
You are Apostle Holmes, right, sir?
Leo the 14th.
Oh, the Pope. That's the Pope.
Well, like I said in the beginning, shout out to all the single moms who are really doing the best that they can. You know, you're doing the best that you can, and we see you. You know what I mean? We have to step up, and we have to do better. Now, when we step up, let us step up. You know what I'm saying?
That's key.
When we step up and we, frame and mold your son to be a good young man, let us do our part. You know what I'm saying? Trust us with that.
Point. Very good point, Apostle. Because I think that's one of the struggles, because when they see you kind of handling a matter in a certain way and they don't understand it, that's because you're a woman. You don't understand how men think and how they move, right. And you got to let them have it. Go ahead, Bishop.
No, I echo what the Pope said. When we step up, let us step up. Listen, that's a great point. When we step up, and you it might not be comfortable how you see us stepping up and how you see us handling certain things, but trust our ability to do what we're doing as men. We're not going to try to harm them.
Right.
We're trying to help you and them. So I like that when we step up.
God, who is this? Is this a pastor on Yolanda Dancy?
Yes, sir. That's Pastor Dancy.
She said,
What's
be
that?
consistent. In other words, I ain't trying to hear all that. Look, you need to get her on the doggone stage.
Get her on the line.
Again, we got to get these kids in church. That's
the key.
Thing.
We got to get access. We got to get access to them.
To be fair, getting them in church may not necessarily mean getting there on Sunday. It's like you got to bait the fish to catch the fish.
But
you know what I'm saying?
True.
We need to put something together on a Friday, on a Saturday, for young people.
That's right.
To do something, to get them going and start that mentorship.
That's important. I was having a conversation. I had to go out of town and preach yesterday, and I was having a conversation with one of the gentleman that came with me, and he said something that resonated with me. I was telling him how the city I grew up in, Stanford, is a small, big city, but there are people in here that I went to school with that I haven't seen in 40 or 50 years. And his question to me was, or his statement to me was, the reality is, Bishop, though, outside of church, where would we congregate? Outside of church and outside of seeing people at funerals, where would we congregate if we don't run in the same circles? Because when we were younger, we had pool halls and game rooms and places that we could meet and socialize and interact with young people. Where now? Where do we do it now?
Well, we gotta make it intentional, right? We gotta plan something. We gotta schedule it. We gotta make an appointment, and then we gotta hopefully show up, right?
We gotta create it.
Yeah,
we gotta create it. Yeah, and we got.
So I did drop the link inside the chat. I don't know if anybody saw it. That's a link if they want to come on. I guess nobody's brave enough tonight. It might be a little too late anyway. We're pushing an hour. We're pushing an hour and a half. All right. Thank you, brothers. Thank you so much. We had a couple more points, but I think we covered the most significant parts of this. I thought this was good. So next week, I think we should come back and have a discussion and bring on some of the women to have a conversation. And we got.
I'm gonna do some more. I'm gonna do some more research on statistics on this too, because this is a good one. Because I think we are really in limbo where this particular topic is concerned.
So you want to pick this up next week, because we do have some statistics that we did push out earlier.
Yeah, I think it's important to spend some time here.
Okay.
Because it ain't that deep, but it ain't that deep. It ain't that deep, but it's a severe enough problem, in particular in our community, that we got to extend some help, man.
I'm wondering if the problem is if this problem is more grave within the church than it is in the community.
And it could be. And are we the problem? Am I the problem as a leader? Because I'm never afraid to self-examine.
Because I say that because there are a lot of different community programs. You got PAL, and all these different things in the hood, so to speak. And so you have all these different mentorship programs. But a lot of those kids don't go to church, but our kids, it's just Sunday and they're not seeing that mentorship. So I think we just need to change the dynamic, man. And like Sis said, first of all, get on point and then be consistent with it.
And back in the day,
that's gonna,
back in the day, Holmes, the church did have leagues. They did have church leagues.
Yeah.
That don't exist now.
Right.
So we had to participate. It evolved into us participating in the secular leagues, because reality is they push things to Sundays because the Jews and certain groups wouldn't participate on Saturdays. And they knew the Christians would participate on Sundays. And so and that's how things evolve.
Yeah. So we got, I think we have wiggle room as it pertains to what we can do. And I think we just have to take the options that we have and make something out of them. And but I think it's on us.
Let's do that.
And like I said, we have 4 churches right now here.
Yeah.
And it's on us to do something, know. And maybe we can all one day have a Zoom meeting either right before church or right after church, to where the whole congregation hears, what we want to do, where the parents hear what we want to do. Because when they see the unity with the men, I think that's a strong statement, So I think if we come together and say the same thing and be on one accord, I think that can be a catalyst to take this somewhere.
Yeah. So I think when we come back next week, we should probably teach us a little bit more. I think I have a couple more bullet points that we can go through that I think that'll kind of guide us to where we might want to go. It deals with teaching responsibility, not just obedience, answers questions about manhood, honesty, how to speak to his manhood, and maybe give women ways to speak to a young man's manhood. How does he deal with women? How does he deal with the opposite sex? How does he deal with his hormones, right? Because that's a subject, if there's no Ben around, he's gonna have to struggle through that on his own.
I could tell you a story about that.
We'll wait till next week to hear that story. So
I don't know.
So I think we can continue.
Wow.
I don't know this person talking about. All right, so next week, guys.
Yep.
All right.
Give us some time to meditate.
Let me
think
hold
about
on. Let me clarify something, because I don't, and respectfully, like, nobody here was talking about religion tonight.
Nah,
Everybody here. Let me get this.
That's the book.
Everybody here is a pastor, and we're talking about how to fix things. And the way we addressed it is from our viewpoint, from two aspects: from the church aspect and from how we grew up. I grew up in the hood. Bishop grew up in Stanford. Collie, I think you grew up in Brooklyn or something like that.
Nah, in Portchester, but it was a hood projects.
And so we were coming from that angle. Nobody here was trying to beat religion down on anybody.
No,
we're gonna dismiss that right away. You know what I'm saying? We trying to get out. We trying to help out our single moms, and we're trying to help out these young boys. So
well, this person came in. They came in last minute. They don't know what we're talking about. They just
All right, let's shut this down. The Fahrenheit done went up a few degrees.
No, I just do the comments.
Yeah. Well, what did they say?
Nothing. So they ain't say nothing, man. They're just trying to sound intelligent, but. All right. God bless. Thank you all for jumping in, sharing with us tonight. The ladies are good. We need more men in these conversations, but tonight we did speak to the women specifically. So let's talk about this a little bit more next week. And I think when we talk about this, maybe men that's not doing what they're supposed to do, may be encouraged. They'll start seeing the importance of being around, right?
Yeah, man.
Being in their children's lives. All right, guys. Thank you so much, fellas. Let's have a good night, and we'll see you guys next week.
All right.
All right.
Peace, everyone.